Hi everybody and welcome back to This Week in Magic Online Finance. I'm your host Chaz Andres, and over the next couple of episodes I'll be taking a summer break from the usual movers and shakers and instead focusing on some bigger picture topics of Magic Online Finance. This week's video is all about seasonal trends. I've been studying seasonal trends in the greater world of Magic Finance for, about a decade now. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start looking at bigger picture seasonal trends for Magic Finance as a whole. And then toward the end of the video, we're going to be narrowing down into specific Magic Online only seasonal financial trends. Alright, so let's start by talking about the season we're about to start. Summer. Summer tends to be the biggest bear market of the year. Prices tend to hit their seasonal lows, most cards are pretty cheap, and there are a couple of reasons for this. One, most importantly, people just play less Magic in the summer. School is out, and weekends are for cool outdoor activities. People go hiking and swimming and going to camp. They're not sitting in tournament halls under fluorescent lights playing Magic indoors. That's just a better winter activity. Summer is also right before the yearly set rotation, which happens every year in September, which means that people are a little bit gun-shy about investing in a standard deck that's going to rotate in a couple of months. People don't want to spend big money on cards when they don't know what the metagame is going to look like. And compounding that issue is the fact that standard tends to be at its stalest during the summer, because cards are about to rotate. Things that have been plaguing the format for 2 years now are still kicking around, and people just can't wait to see them gone. They don't want to play standard by and large during the summer. They want to wait and see what that fresh new format's going to look like. This of course means that summer is the best time of year to buy Magic cards. I personally like to wait until early August. That's when the days are the hottest, people are the sickest of Magic, and also we're close to rotation, but nobody's excited about the new set yet. Nobody knows what's out there, so people tend to not be investing in standard at all, and that drag tends to apply to Eternal cards as well. It drags the whole market down. So this is my favorite time of year to buy Magic cards as a whole, especially standard cards that look like they may be staples come the new format in fall. Let's move on to autumn, which is the height of standard season, especially those couple of weeks right after that lovely new fall set drops. People get so excited about that new format, prices tend to spike very, very high. It's the worst time of year to buy into standard and the best time of year to sell any of your summer specs. That said, there are some cheap buying opportunities, especially late in the fall. By the end of November, we've all been drafting the fall set for a couple of months now, and prices can get really cheap heading into the holiday season. Autumn is also not a bad time to buy modern cards, because people tend to be a little bit eager to sell these in order to buy into standard, so the prices tend to dip a little bit more than you'd think. And lastly, fall is a great time to think about buying cards that have just rotated, especially cards that look like they're going to be good modern or legacy staples. For example, I'm going to be having my eye on picking up a bunch of copies of Walking Ballista this fall. Now, early winter tends to bring another lull with it. The holiday season, another time of year when standard prices tend to be depressed, and a lot of stores have good holiday sales that make for an attractive buying opportunity. The early winter is also another reasonable time to buy into modern, perhaps your last chance for a couple of months, though sometimes that can be affected by, say, last year's iconic Masters release, which kept Eternal prices a little bit higher through the holiday season than usual, but often that is your last chance to buy into modern before what happens next. So come January, modern season tends to begin in earnest. This usually kicks off with the most important banned and restricted announcement of the year, the one that usually has the greatest chance to actually ban or unban something. Specs go crazy on either side of this, and then come usually a couple of important modern tournaments, maybe even a pro tour, and these prices tend to keep increasing and increasing all the way through the middle of April. People are getting their tax refunds, they're spending them on Eternal cards, and even standard tends to experience a resurgence early in the spring, as we tend to get a couple of interesting expansions, one on top of each other, which stimulates that market. And that brings us to spring. Spring is a great time to be selling Magic cards, especially Eternal Magic cards. People are playing a lot of Modern, they're playing Legacy, they've got extra money due to tax season. This tends to be when the biggest Eternal spikes happen. And that peak tends to happen either around tax refund season, in the beginning of April, or sometimes a little bit later if there's a Spring Modern Masters release, but that obviously varies year to year. Spring is also a pretty solid time for Standard, which tends to peak again right after or during the spring set release. This peak is generally not as big as the peak in the fall, but it's the second biggest Standard season of the year. This bull market tends to stay in place until just around Memorial Day, at which point values start to stagnate and then drop again. And it used to be the Spring Pro Tour helped prices, but these days, because they moved it a little bit later in the Standard cycle, it doesn't seem to be as stimulating as it used to be. So we tend to go into our summer lull around the beginning of June, and thus the cycle continues. So how do these trends play out differently on MTGO versus paper Magic? Well, first of all, seasonal trends, all the ones I've been discussing, tend to not be as big a deal on MTGO as they are in paper Magic. And that's because it's just a lot easier to press a button and make a transaction on MTGO than it is to physically try and sell a copy of your card in the world of paper Magic. Let's say, for example, that it's mid-July and you want to play Standard. Well, in paper Magic, you have to go out and buy that $30 card that's about to rotate, but you need it for the good deck, and then as rotation approaches, demand just falls off a cliff and you can't find a way to sell it, and now it's dropping below $10 and it's approaching rotation and you can't find a buyer anywhere. That really doesn't happen so much in MTGO because you can kind of always find a buyer. It might not be for the price you want, but you can probably cash out for maybe $18 or $20 on the way down as long as you're on top of things. So prices tend to not be quite as depressed in those seasonal lulls on MTGO as they are in paper. On the flip side, individual tournament results and micro trends in the metagame tend to affect prices a lot more on MTGO than in paper. So that $30 card in paper, it might have a couple of bad weeks in a row, but the price may not actually drop because selling it is such a hassle. Nobody wants to risk losing out on a card that's going to end up stabilizing and becoming an important part of the metagame going forward. Meanwhile, on MTGO, that thing can crash overnight if you're not paying attention. Third, people tend to sell their modern cards every single time a new set comes out, which means that staples like Mox Opal and Liliana of the Veil tend to drop in price for really no good reason because people are obsessed with buying Karn or Teferi or whatever the new hot Standard tech is. And this can be a little bit frustrating if you've got a large personal modern collection, but it's great if you're willing to be patient and willing to play the larger trends in terms of acquiring key staples. So don't buy staples if you can help it until those drops when new sets come out. Not every modern card drops, but a handful, something like 10 or 20 drop every single time a new set comes out, and the discounts can be quite significant. Lastly, it's worth noting that every once in a while, there's some sort of crazy MTGO exclusive panic that causes the entire Magic Online index to drop like 20% overnight. And maybe it's something with Arena, or a new currency, or a tournament series getting cut, or whatever. It happens about once a year. It's been a little while since the last one, so we're probably due. And the only thing to know about this is that that is when you should be buying. When people are being fearful, it's time for you to be greedy. Those prices always rebound no matter what season it is. That's all I got for you this week. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed what you watched. Please subscribe to MTGO Trader's awesome YouTube channel. I'm Chaz Andres. I will see you next Monday morning.